That liability waiver you sign at the rental counter won't help you at 30 meters or 100 feet if your rental BCD decides to quit. Today, I'm teaching you the 3-minute stress test, a rough tactical system to spot critical equipment failures before you even pay for the rental. My goal is to give you the gear literacy of an experienced diver so you can stop hoping your gear works and start knowing it does. Let's start immediately with the system you absolutely can't afford to ignore. Most divers operate under a false sense of security when they pick up rental equipment. You grab the gear, assume the shop already checked everything that matters, and head toward the dive, expecting it to just work. And that is where the hidden risk starts. Even good rental shops do not replace your own pre-dive verification. This is equipment you need not only to enjoy the dive, but to survive it as well. Often, rental cylinders will be aboard the boat, so you may not be able to check those during your initial gear safety checks before the diving starts, but everything else you can inspect at the rental shop. Grab a cylinder at the rental shop and set everything up as if you're ready to dive. If you do need a quick refresher on gear assembly, minus some of the pre-dive safety checks, I do have a video you can watch up here next. But once things are assembled, now it is time to run through a quick system test and find out whether anything needs to be swapped out before you even hit the water. If you're renting a DIN regulator, quickly inspect the O-ring for frays and make sure it is not overly dull. Remember, on DIN systems, the O-ring is on the regulator itself. It should look like a plump donut, not a flat tire. And it should not have any dirt or nicks on it. If it is yoke, then you will check those before the use of the cylinder. Once you've confirmed that, slap your regulator on it, grab the SPG, point it away from you, and slowly turn on the gas. You should see the SPG correctly reading the pressure of the cylinder, likely full at around 3000 psi or 200 bar. Listen and feel around the system for hissing or escaping gas. Any meaningful leak is a red flag, and usually caused by a bad O-ring somewhere in the system. Keep the SPG in hand, grab one of the second stages, and breathe it deeply in and out at least 3 times while making sure the SPG stays stable. Test the purge button. It should not purge too easily, but it should purge with an intentional push. Check that the mouthpiece is intact, not brittle or frayed, and properly secured. Bend it around and search for tears at the base. That's where they'll show up. And often they only show themselves as you're moving the mouthpiece around, so don't forget that. Now, inspect the hoses back to the first stage for hissing, fraying, or cracking. It helps a little bit to bend the hose while you look, but don't bend it hard, just a little bit so you can see the cracks if there are any. Especially look for frays near any joints, like at the second stage regulator and at the first stage, the connectors. And speaking of connectors, make sure you slide those hose protectors back if they are there and check for excess rust under them. It's very common for those hose protectors to trap salt water inside them and rust the metal underneath them. Then I like to turn the cylinder off while watching the SPG, and then breathe off the second stage until you feel a hard no gas stop. Then you breathe into it to ensure it is stopped in both directions. Then turn the gas back on and repeat the exact step with the other second stage. We are doing all of this because this is the kind of failure that often stays invisible until the moment you actually need the gear to work. So all this will make sure your first and second stages are working appropriately. And so once you know you can breathe, you need to ensure the rest of your system can actually maintain your position in the water column. A full cylinder is useless if your BCD acts like a sieve or your weight pockets decide to abandon you. Phase 2 shifts from gas delivery to stability. Most rental checks tend to be laughably fast, but you're not going to skip on it, right? After this video, you'll know just what to look for. But if you think that just pushing the inflator button, hearing air, and assuming the unit works is enough, that only confirms that the mechanism is not clogged. It tells you nothing about whether the bladder will actually hold the air when you need it most. That's why you need to perform the full inflation hold. You want to fill the air bladder of the BCD until the overpressure valve, or OPV, activates and starts letting gas out. You want to hear that distinct sound of gas pressing through the OPV. Good. Which confirms the bladder is at maximum capacity and the OPVs are functioning well. Then hug the BC against your chest like you're hugging a friend. If you feel the firmness softening or hear a subtle wheeze, you likely have a leak in your bladder. That could be a pinhole in the fabric or a loose dump valve. While the jack is inflated, manually inflate it fully to verify the oral valve is not seized. And while you're testing the inflator mechanism, manually inflate it fully to verify the oral valve is working as well. If your power inflator fails at depth, your lungs are the backup, so that valve must work. While the jacket is fully inflated, do a quick audit of the dump valves. They're going to either be on the right or on the left, on the rear or the bottom of the BCD. You want to make sure there's no white saline crystals around the seal, and make sure they are tightened and confirm when they are pulled they actually release gas. Then make sure the wing still holds gas when released. Test all the dump valves. In addition, make sure you test the deflator on your inflator hose as well. But double checking the dump valves, you should always have at least two. You usually have one on the bottom or one on top. Some BCDs just have one. While you're testing, make sure that it pulls smoothly. If it feels crunchy or stiff, the valve may not work when you need to dump air quickly. Next, you'll check the deflate button on the inflator hose to ensure it properly deflates. If the tube is corrugated, go ahead and give that a tug to ensure it works too. Next, address integrated weight systems if you plan to use them. Weight integrated pockets are convenient until they detach unexpectedly. And I have personally seen this happen to far more divers than I would like to admit. A visual scan of the buckle is not enough because the fatigue and the locking mechanism is often internal. You need to put them on and do a tug test. Insert the weight pocket, lock it in place, and physically yank on that area, but of course not the quick release. You're trying to simulate force of a giant stride entry or the drag of current. If the pocket releases in your hand with a moderate tug in the shop, it certainly would have dropped to the ocean floor during the dive. Also, ensure that the quick release actually does its job and the weights actually slide out. Then, run your fingers along the stitching of the pocket and feel for the fraying or weaknesses that could lead to the bottom falling out. This is exactly the kind of gear problem that does not look dramatic until it becomes your problem underwater. Better to aggressively test the system in the shop than to be a diver bobbing on the surface while your lead weights sit on the bottom. Now, let's fill the BCD one last time and turn off the gas cylinder for the system. We want to give it some time to sit fully pressurized to ensure it does not have leaks. And if you're enjoying this video, now is a great time to like and subscribe. If you find this information valuable, please do share it with others. And if you're looking to be caught up with the latest and greatest, I have a free monthly newsletter to keep you up to date with the scuba industry, some helpful tips, and the latest gear releasing. Check it out in the description below and I'll see you there. Up next, with your gas delivery and stability locked in, we shift focus to the equipment that informs your decisions and protects your body. A dangerous oversight in rental computers is diving with someone else's nitrogen load. This is one of those risks a lot of divers never even think about. Dive computers track nitrogen absorption in your tissues based on time and depth. If the previous renter pushes their no decompression limits yesterday and you jump in today without checking, the computer calculates your dive based on their saturation. That can give you unsafe decompression obligations before your dive is even really yours. Unsafe or at least unfair. So you want to turn the unit on and ensure that the no fly time is clear. Inspect the history and double check the last dive too. This ensures the nitrogen load from the prior dives is cleared and the computer model will be fresh when you begin to use it. And while the screen is active, make sure the battery is strong so that you have plenty of battery for your dives. Also verify the oxygen percentage of the gas mixture is set to what you expect to be diving with. Of course, this is not a substitute for measuring what the gas in your cylinder, but it gives you time to figure out how to change the oxygen percentage on your dive computer, and you can ask these questions while you're there. Finally, check the wetsuit if that's included in your rentals. It acts as a misery multiplier if it fails. Run the zipper track its full length to ensure that the zipper functions smoothly in both directions without snagging. Don't stop at the zipper though. Inspect the neoprene for wear and tear. A hole in the suit flushes cold water through constantly, draining your body heat. But small, rough patches on external fabric is acceptable. You are looking for tears that go deep or all the way through. This entire check took me a little longer than 3 minutes to explain, but in practice, it will only take you a few minutes to do. Note that I left the system pressurized, and it is good for you to leave it pressurized as you fill out your waivers and such. The longer you wait, the better, but after a good 10 to 20 minutes, if it has not dropped any pressure or only minimal pressure, it is a good sign that the system is doing its job, is holding pressure. Do you have any additional pieces of insight for gear inspections? Or what is the worst piece of gear you almost ended up renting? Or ended up renting altogether and maybe finding out was a bad idea on a dive? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories and learning so we can all learn what to look out for. A good rental shop is not about luck. It is about doing a few simple checks so you can enter the water feeling prepared, calm, and ready to enjoy the dive. If this video spiked your interest in doing proper pre-dive safety checks, check out this video here. Or if you want to forego potentially getting rentals and just buy your own gear, I have this series here that will help inform you of all the different pieces of gear much more in depth and help you with those buying decisions. Check that out here. The more you know, the more you'll love and protect the ocean. Until next time.